after you've shuffled off this mortal coil, what would you like to be done with your remains?
Wow. That's a fantastic question, Kyle.
I know.
What do I want? I heard a news story once about a service that will press your ashes into a record. And I thought that was fun. But then I'd have to decide what would be on it. And that feels like a massive decision.
I think it should just be a recording of your screams. Or help, I'm trapped in here! Destroy the record and free me from my prison! No, what would you, think about putting on there?
I feel like I would want it to be a song. I don't think I would want it to be me. I think I would just want it to be a piece of music that was meaningful to me. So I have to spend the rest of my life on the hunt for that piece of music.
For your death song. Your death knell.
Death song. I'm glad that you've asked this question, though, because it's got me thinking about it early.
I think this is a question we should probably ask children a lot sooner in life so they can get started.
Yeah.
Started it's open a 401c. 401c?
401c. 401c, that's 401 children. That's what they open before they reach adulthood.
Welcome to Butter No Parsnips. Every week on Butter No Parsnips, your hosts Kyle Imperator and Emily Moyers take you on an adventure through the weird, wacky, wonderful, and sometimes even wicked world of one wayside word. Strange characters, delightful bits, and general joyousness abound. Join them as they test each other's etymological expertise.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Butter No Parsnips. I'm Emily Moyers.
And I'm Kyle Imperator. And wow, we're covering a lot today on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Not only are we covering a word, Emily, but it may or may not be your final word.
Wow, it's the final countdown.
The final countdown. That's going to be the song on your record.
Oh, shoot. I guess I'm stuck with that, huh?
Yeah, you picked it. Emily, your word today is Mortsafe. Mortsafe. Mortsafe.
Mortsafe. Boy, it's either a service that does something not related to anything that you would think it is, or it's a early 2000s PC game. These are the things running through my head when I just hear the word Mortsafe based on how the word sounds. Like
a virus checker. Mortsafe.
Yeah. Or a little flash game about a guy named Mort,
But a guy named Mort, and he has to get to safety.
He has to get to safety. You got it. We're
gonna build this game tonight.
Is this an adjective? Is this a noun?
It is a noun.
It's a noun. I mean, listen, I gotta just guess what feels very low hanging is a Mortsafe, mort like death and safe like a container. Is a Mortsafe just a coffin?
It's more specific than a coffin. So I don't know if I can give it to you on that. I'd love to give it to you, but the judges are saying,
Give me a hint, Kyle.
I'm not so much sure that the hint's going to help you, but your hint today, Emily, is Frankenstein.
Oh, but I guess based on the fact that you said it's not going to help me, I shouldn't read too far into that.
Or do, and maybe you'll get there by accident.
Frankenstein feels like it's really trying to tell me something, but I don't know what. And when I say it, I mean the doctor.
The word. The doctor. Victor.
A Mortsafe. Here's the thing: is I feel like I've heard it. A Mortsafe is in a mortuary where they in that rolly slidey thing that goes into the wall of file cabinets of cadavers. Is
honestly,
that a Mortsafe?
Such a good guess. I don't know if that has a word or not, but I think Mortsafe would be a good word for that.
It feels fitting, but I gather really that's fitting. Not correct.
It is not correct, Emily.
Okay.
You are dancing around all of it. But a Mortsafe is an iron frame cage or grill constructed over a coffin or grave of the newly deceased.
You seem like stunned. What Frankenstein is in when they hoist him up to get struck by lightning?
No, that's just how they did surgery back then.
I don't know if I'm visualizing what this is, but tell me more.
I mean, it's literally basically a cage that goes over the grave on the ground.
Like to stop grave robbers?
We'll talk about that, Emily.
Please do. Tell me.
The answer is yes, but we'll talk about that after we go through the origin.
Okay, let's go through that.
Good job. So I don't really need to go through the origin because you said it all already. The Mortsafe is a combination of two English words. Second one is the more familiar one, safe, obviously.
Yeah, like to keep safe.
Well, it comes from the noun sense of safe, as in a receptacle for the safe storage of articles, like where you put jewelry.
With a twisty lock.
With a twisty lock. That kind of safe comes from the original use of the word safe was for storage of like groceries and goods, like to keep away from rats. So like a meat safe was where you kept meat.
That makes sense.
Like a cabinet. But that obviously comes from the adjective safe. It comes through Middle English, Middle French, and Old French, ultimately from the Latin salvus, meaning safe or saved or well, healthy or wholesome, stemming from Proto-Italic salvos, meaning whole, safe, or healthy, and Proto-Indo-European sol, meaning whole. Can you think of any other words related to salvus?
Oh.
If you
like in other languages they say like salute, like to your health.
Oh, I mean, absolutely, definitely, probably. I don't know, but English words maybe.
Salutations.
Yes, Emily, salutation does stem back from the Proto-Indo-European root, sol, meaning whole. But there's another word that is more closely related to salvus, and that's salvation.
Oh, sure.
It comes from Latin salvatio, meaning deliverance or salvation.
Oh.
The other word then is mort, M-O-R-T, and it's an English word that has some modern senses relating to hunting, which we don't need to talk about. But the obsolete sense of mort is death or slaughter or a corpse or a dead body was a mort or mort.
But it's also like a prefix, like in mortal or mortuary.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but it's not an English word in that sense. As a prefix, it's just the Latin prefix that, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
It comes from Middle English, Middle French, and Old French as well. And those words that it comes from have two different Latin roots. There's mors, which meant death, corpse or dead body or annihilation, and mortuus, meaning a dead person, a dead man, or a corpse, a dead body. I don't know what the difference in those senses are, but the Latins did. And both originate from a Proto-Indo-European root, mer, meaning to die or to disappear. You already brought up some other mort words. What were those again, Emily?
Mortal, like subject to death?
Yes, Emily, yeah. Subject to death, literally, exactly. It just comes from a shortening of a Latin word, mortalis. Sure. There's also mortician, literally a person whose job is death, right?
Yeah.
There's also another word that comes from the root mer.
Oh, what word is that?
Murder.
Oh, that makes sense.
Through the Old English word morthor.
Morthor is a great name to put in D&D.
It's a great name for D&D. And it's crazy because for a long time, I think up until like the 1800s maybe, the word in English was murther and not murder.
Oh, that's just what the English word was? Wow.
Yep. So, Emily, you got to this way before I expected you to, but I'll ask the question now anyway.
Yeah.
What do you think the intended use of mortsafes was?
Well, here's the thing. So anytime you put a barrier anywhere, it's got to be to keep things from going one way or the other. So if it's not concerns about zombies, it's got to be concerns about grave robbers.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So recent speculation online particularly has insinuated that mortsafes were Victorian contraptions that were invented to quell some supposed panic over vampires or zombies rising from their eternal resting places.
I guess it was like Victorians were very superstitious, but I think also like we in the modern day like to associate those.
That, I mean, I don't think
we
that
want
was
Victorians to be spooky.
Yes, yes. Yeah, because they're ghost stories is what they are.
Yeah.
That whole era is just people of ghost stories. Yeah, so I mean, that isn't why they were invented. And the truth is so much worse. The truth is...
grave robbing.
Yeah, essentially. But not grave robbing.
Oh.
Grave robbing wasn't so much of a worry. Probably because people weren't really buried with things as much as they were.
Concerned people taking the bodies?
You see, Emily, in the late 18th and early 19th century Great Britain, and also in America, but that's for another episode, there was an epidemic of body snatching, the illicit theft of corpses, especially by removal from graves.
Why was there an epidemic of that? How many people were trying to make Frankenstein? A
lot of people, Emily. It was a huge problem for like 50 years.
Was that the reason? Were they all trying to bring them back?
No.
Okay.
We'll talk about the reason a little later, but I want to talk about. So mortsafes then were just one of the methods used to try to stop these body snatchers. The body snatchers also had the tongue-in-cheek moniker resurrectionists or resurrection men. I also found a couple sources calling them sack-em-up men, which is more fun than it should be.
Sack 'em up!
So, for the less well-off, Emily, the best means of protection against body snatchers might have been digging deeper graves and making the soil more compact over the coffins, though this wasn't necessarily useful. A particularly skilled resurrectionist could open an ordinary grave in about an hour, and even if his task was rendered more difficult by the firmness of the soil, he had ample time during the night to carry out his evil deed.
Wow.
Yeah, they just had all night to do it.
I just can't believe this was like a rampant thing.
So some communities were able to band together to form watching societies, which took shifts watching over the graveyards, and they would sometimes build watch houses or watchtowers near or within the graveyard. But they had to find people to watch at all hours of the night. They had to stay up all night.
Yeah.
Watchmen were easily distracted with alcohol while the body snatchers went behind their backs. It was an imperfect solution, right?
Yeah.
If watch houses were an option, mort houses or dead houses, which were essentially temporary mausoleums that kept multiple corpses together for easier observation, sometimes were built.
Like before like bodies waiting to be buried, or?
Yes, because if they were buried, they were harder to keep track of. Do you know what I mean?
I gotta have eyes on them.
Yeah, exactly. So if they're all in one place, it's like, I just have to watch this door. You know?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we cannot bury your grandmother. Then it will become Schrodinger's grandmother, and I won't know if she's there.
No, you won't know if she's alive or dead, is the real problem. There were also heavy coffin-shaped stones called mort stones, or resurrection stones, or sometimes jankers. Which are named after the mechanism used to place them, the janker mechanism.
Jankers is like if you took, you know how all of the Scooby-Doo characters have like an exclamation of shock? If you smooshed them all into one, it would be Jankers.
Jankers!
And Daphne would say, Jankers, crankers!
God, I'm just picturing some horrible Scooby-Doo homunculus of the five of them. Jankers! We're the monster in this episode! Yeah, so a mortsafe, a mort stone, just like a heavy stone placed like above the grave. Like the idea was to make it more difficult to get into the grave from the top. The problem was that body snatchers figured out how to get around them. They would just dig a hole near the head and pop like the front of the coffin down.
Just slide it out.
Tie a rope around the neck or the arms and literally pull it out horizontally.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That makes sense.
And so around 1816, mortsafes were invented. There were many different kinds because they were just developed by whatever blacksmith was in the town.
Sure.
There were some very simple ones that were just a few iron slats that would kind of go over the grave like a brace, sort of.
Mhm.
And then there were these very expensive ones that consisted of intricately intertwined iron grids. Sometimes they had multiple padlocks on them, and they would like give the keys out to multiple different people. One of them I found had a trick lock where there was like a knob on it that made it look like the knob was the way to open the mechanism, but it was just a metal stud and it did nothing. Yeah.
Just if you wanted to keep the grave robber there it long enough for the constable to arrive.
Exactly.
Make him think he's going to figure out this Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. And then to defray the high costs of Mortsafes, subscription-based Mortsafe societies, such as the Lunlithgow Mortsafe Association for Protecting the Dead, were founded in order to loan Mortsafes out to the paying families of the recently deceased.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a wild thing. And Emily, it's going to get twice and 3 times wilder. So it's going to get Gene wilder. That's how wild this episode's going to get.
Tell me, Kyle.
Awful teen.
Oh, Gene Wilder, Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's it.
I got there. I'm a little behind, but I got there.
So, Emily, in the mid-18th century, many new schools had emerged dedicated to the growing popularity of the research of human anatomy. The general public now saw dissection of the human body as a fate worse than death. It can be attributed to Christian beliefs in the universal resurrection of the dead at the end of time. They thought, when the world's over, God's going to bring our bodies back to life, and that'll be heaven. And so they were like, don't take me apart. I can't be there for it then.
Yeah.
The Murder Act of 1751 serves as proof of this belief. And what it did was it made, at the time, murderers their bodies had to be hanged to like show like that this is what happens when you murder. We're going to hang you and your bodies just are left to be hung.
Hanged.
But the Murder Act of 1751 made it so that public dissection was one of the options. So your body could be dissected gruesomely, and they'd be like, yeah, he deserves that.
That's right. Gotcha.
And like people would be like, don't murder because you'll be dissected, you know?
Yeah.
But this meant that the only corpses that anatomical schools could obtain were that of murderers. And by 1760, students were required to attend 2 full courses in anatomy with dissection in order to apply for a surgical license from the Royal College of London. So, by the end of the century, it's fair to say that the number of medical students far outpaced the number of convicted murderers. You see where I'm going here, Emily?
We gotta get some more bodies.
We need bodies.
Yeah. Yep.
So the loophole, of course, there's always a loophole,
There's
Emily.
always a loophole.
The loophole was that while grave robbing, which is stealing the clothing or items buried in a grave, was illegal, as those things were considered property, corpses weren't technically property.
It was kidnapping.
It wasn't kidnapping because they were dead. They weren't alive. So there was
weird
just no
nether
law.
space. Yeah.
It was literally, yeah, exactly. It was like
there
awful.
was no law about body snatching.
So, for example, one anatomy professor in Dublin, upon catching wind that some of his students had planned to steal the corpse of the giant Cornelius McGrath, said, "If you should be so carried away with your desire for knowledge that, thus against my expressed wish you persist in doing so, I would have you remember that if you take only the body, there is no law whereby you can be touched. But if you so much as take a rag or stocking with it, it is a hanging matter."
So you'd have to take the body, strip
And
it,
leave the
everything there, and then cart a naked corpse back to class.
Yep. You got it.
That's insane.
Yeah, and students had to get their own bodies at that point because there just weren't enough and they needed it to get the license. They need to do dissection to get the license.
Yes, I see you're applying for a license. Where is the corpse?
Oh, corpse. Oh, I left it in my other pants.
God, it's at home. Can I come back? I'll just run right home.
We're going to have to put you back at the end of the line, unfortunately. Yeah. So, Emily, the best the authorities could do was charge body snatchers with crimes against public mores. But it remained an open secret that they usually looked the other way. And it's because they saw the corpse's use as for a good cause, the advancement of medical knowledge. Right?
Sure.
Mortsafes were useful then for people who didn't want their loved ones' corpses to be stolen.
That makes sense.
But they were temporary. They were only left over a grave for about 6 weeks, or until the bodies had decomposed enough that they were of little use to anatomists.
Sure. So then they dig them up and take the Mortsafe off?
And then it would be loaned out to someone else who's subscribed to the society.
Wow. But it would, I guess, be a cheaper fee then because it's a temporary loan.
Yeah, and it depended on the Mortsafe too.
Sure.
They were just expensive things at the time.
Yeah.
And to have to dig them in, and it got drilled
and
into a
dig them
base,
out.
it was off, and take them out, yeah.
Yeah.
But all of these precautions, Emily, made stealing corpses difficult for medical students. So, anatomists partnered with professional resurrectionists to fill their dissection tables. Whew. Get ready for this, Emily.
No, there's more that's worse.
Yeah. No one was safe. Anatomist Sir Astley Cooper once stated, "There is no person, let his situation in life be what it may, whom, if I were disposed to dissect, I could not obtain." Which is a terrifying statement.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this sentiment of his was best carried out through the Burke and Hare murders of 1828. You ever heard of these murders, Emily, or these murderers?
No, but I'm scared.
Oh, you should be scared, Emily. So, when a lodger in William Hare's lodging house, Tanner's Close, passed away before he could collect rent, Hare complained to friend William Burke about his situation, and the two said, "Oh, I got an idea," and they decided to sell the body to the anatomist Robert Knox for a hefty sum. Knox was like, "I'll pay you a lot. I need bodies."
This is Sweeney Todd, but with full corpses.
But with full corpses, exactly.
This is a money-making scheme.
Yeah. And for a good cause? I don't know. You could argue that
Kyle,
the pies were for a good cause,
I was
too.
just going to say, the greatest pies in London are the best cause.
Yeah. So, realizing that this could be lucrative, the two began murdering Hare's lodgers in order to sell the corpses to Knox. They just said,
just crazy.
Let's kill them. Yep.
I do want a musical about these two, though. Just
honestly,
as an aside.
This would be great.
I do want that. Go on.
The duo claimed 16 victims in total, including, as Burke described, a stout old woman, a cinder gatherer, and an old woman and a dumb boy, her grandson, and a bunch of other women they murdered too. They killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
They also killed a well-loved 18-year-old savant with a limp, James Wilson, known locally as Daft Jamie. It was tragic. The students who saw the body come into the school were like, "Hey, Dr. Knox, we know him. We know this guy." And Knox was like, "Nah, I don't know what you're talking about," and literally hid the body from them and started the dissection from the face so that people couldn't recognize him anymore.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And Jamie's mother was like going around town bawling, "Have you seen my son? Have you seen my son?" It was just this awful thing.
This is awful.
It was such a big deal that his tragic death inspired poems about him and his mother. And one of those was the elegiac lines on the tragical murder of poor Daft Jamie. And it opens, "Attendance give whilst I relate how poor Daft Jamie met his fate. 'Twill make your hair stand on your head as I unfold the horrid deed."
Wow.
And hard it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
5 minutes ago, I was like, how delightfully macabre. And now I'm like,
Well, they get their comeuppance, Emily.
Oh, good.
Burke and Hare were caught because they got sloppy, and a pair of suspicious lodgers in another room were like, I haven't heard from that lady in a while.
Yeah.
And when they were away, they checked in on the room and found one of the dead lodgers still in the bed.
Well, that was very sloppy, yes.
Yep.
Can't just go leaving a corpse in a place where other people live.
And like on her way to the police, one of their accomplices found them. And she was like, oh my God, I found a dead body. Can you believe it? And he tried to bribe her and be like, don't tell the police. And she was like, no, I'm telling the police.
So she could come to the police and say, by the way, this other guy's in on it too. And I know because he tried to give me money.
Yeah. So, Emily, as a part of their modus operandi, the lodgers were made intoxicated. They got them drunk, and then they were murdered by suffocation. Hare would place a pillow over their face while Burke sat on their chest, generally. Wow. They were so known for it that it led to the verb to Burke, meaning to murder by suffocation, and could mean more figuratively to smother, conceal, hush up, or suppress, or by extension to evade, shirk, or avoid.
That's fun. The origin is not fun, but the extension is fun.
And it could also mean just more generally to kill in order to sell corpses to anatomists. Sopping wet novelist Sir Walter Scott said of the team that they have made a great discovery of economics, namely that a wretch who is not worth a farthing while alive becomes a valuable article when knocked on the head and carried to an anatomist. Yeah, just awful.
Yeah.
Fear gripped society, Emily, as it's gripping you right now.
Absolutely.
And all missing persons were just assumed to be victims of the trio. And it led to the popular cautionary Edinburgh children's rhyme that went, up the close and doon the stair, Butt and Ben wi' Burke and Hare. Burke's the butcher, Hare's the thief, knocks the boy that buys the beef.
Delightful.
It's so delightful. In their trial, Hare was given immunity for ratting out Burke, and Burke was executed and publicly dissected. His skeleton is still on display at the University of Edinburgh next to a pocketbook made from his skin. I don't know why. I guess they were just like, this, like, how awful is this? Don't murder. Hey, don't murder.
But I also love the, like, I don't even know if this is a good irony that he was dissected.
And it's like when I say pocketbook, I don't mean like a bag. It's a book with a leather cover, and it literally says like Burke's pocketbook.
Wow.
So, Emily, the group's Burkeism soon led to copycat crimes from a gang of resurrectionists called the London Burkers, and the huge rash of killings forced government action. In 1832, the Parliament passed the Anatomy Act, giving surgeons access to any bodies unclaimed after death, including those from hospitals, workhouses, and prisons, solving the corpse supply-demand problem once and for all.
Well, that's a relief, you know.
It's a relief, right?
That's a big relief.
Yet both Mortsafe societies and watching societies persisted for at least a few decades after, showing that while the problem was gone, the fear sure wasn't.
Absolutely. Understandable.
Yeah. Once Mortsafes ceased being of use, many were broken up for scrap metal or were reused in interesting ways. For example, some were used as watering troughs for livestock, and a churchyard in Skene repurposed its Mortsafe as a lovely bench with a bush.
That's what you want to put your keister on?
Yes, someone was dead here once.
I'm sitting where a coffin was.
The remaining Mortsafes, Emily, very few remain, but most of the remaining Mortsafes, if not all of them, are mainly in Scotland, and they were just left where they were to protect their latest corpse in perpetuity, serving as a beautifully morbid tourist attraction.
Delightful.
And that's everything I know about Mortsafes, Emily. I swear on Mortsafe.
On
Mortimer's safe.
Mortimer's safe. He will keep you to your oath for sure.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Kyle, that was such a wild ride. What a good episode.
I hope it was sufficiently macabre for this month.
Absolutely it was.
Good. Well, Emily, before we can lay this episode to rest, I implore you to use Mortsafe in a sentence?
I think I can. Once again, I've been planning in advance. I've been thinking ahead.
You're so good.
Kyle, this episode has left me so frightened that when I do have my ashes pressed into a vinyl record, I will have written in my will that my family should enclose that record in a Mortsafe and burk it away where no one can find it.
So good,
I
Emily.
used both because I liked both of those words.
Extra points, extra credit. Wow, great job, Em. That is a great sentence. And yeah, I think I'm going to put those extra points to our upcoming game.
A game!
Emily, your game today is called Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Excellent. Perfect.
Excellent.
Beautiful. I was thinking the whole time, I was like, there's a movie for sure.
So Mary Shelley's classic literary work, Frankenstein, was written in 1818 and perfectly encapsulates this era of history. What with its corpses of giants, mass hysteria over secret dissections, and of course the titular body snatcher, Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah. This is making a lot of sense.
So in Frankenstein's honor, Emily, I'm going to give you a fictitious sack-em-up man, and you're going to have to tie them to their original work.
Okay. I got it. All right.
I have a bank for you because
good.
It would just be way too obtuse if I didn't. So the works that you have to pull from are The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Dragon Ball Super, Red Dead Redemption, Return of the Living Dead Part 2, and A Tale of Two Cities.
Okay. I have an intimate knowledge of none of these, but I'm excited.
Perfect. It's just a vibes-based guess then.
That is truly.
Emily, your first resurrectionist is Jeremiah Jerry Cruncher.
My initial thought is if that's not from Tom Sawyer, but I guess there's a world where it could be from Red Dead Redemption. But I'm going to stick with my first thought. I think it's from Tom Sawyer.
You're wrong, Emily. It's actually from Charles Dickinson's novel, A Tale of Two Cities. Doesn't sound Dickensian to you,
Say that
Cruncher?
name again?
Jerry Cruncher.
Jerry Cruncher?
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yuck. The name's Jerry Cruncher. He was like a cereal mascot in the Mark Twain-verse. Yeah, Cruncher was from A Tale of Two Cities. Cruncher is a porter who sells bodies to anatomists on the side. And at the end of the book, he renounces grave robbing and promises to stop abusing his wife. So just a full...
That's what that's about?
Not the whole book. He's just a minor character.
That's a C plot?
That's a C plot in A Tale of... There's two whole cities, all right? There's a lot of people in those cities.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the body snatching time. That's the third one they don't mention.
Yeah. Always gets cut out.
Yeah.
Okay, Emily, your next person is actually a group of people.
Okay.
There's Dr. Robinson, Muff Potter, and a character named Joe with an adjective that is extremely offensive and racially insensitive, so I won't say it.
In that case, I hope this is from Tom Sawyer and not anything made more recently than that.
Yeah. You got it, Emily. Congratulations.
That's a relief.
These characters are from Mark Twain's novel, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. In it, Dr. Robinson acquires Joe and Muff to help him exhume a corpse for his research, but after a fight, Joe murders Dr. Robinson and pins the blame on Muff, who is then acquitted during trial thanks to Tom Sawyer's eyewitness testimony. I don't remember.
Muff always getting the blame.
You know, it is a big part of this election. Can you believe it?
Absolutely. But also, absolutely understandable that Joe would do that if he's being called racist names all the time. I'm rooting for Joe.
You know what? Totally fair. Totally fair. All right, Emily, you're 1 for 2. Here's your last one, all right? Your last one is a man named Seth Briers.
Seth Briers. Seth Briers. Seth Briers.
Mm.
He's the late night host in the alternate dimension.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Return of the Living Dead Part 2 is so specific for you to have put on this list. Is it that?
No.
That's disappointing. Although I guess it's exciting that you put that on the list so specifically.
I put it on the list because there are body snatchers in that film.
That's fun. Yeah. Is that from Red Dead Redemption?
It's from Red Dead Redemption, Emily. I'll give it to you.
At that point, I had a 50-50 shot, so.
Yeah. It's from Rockstar San Diego's classic action-adventure game. Seth is a grave robber with an affinity for chatting with corpses.
Yeah, he is, huh?
He's a major character in the game, and he's, like, at one point, he's just got a whole wagon full of corpses. But there's downloadable content, like a huge expansion that called Undead Nightmare, which basically turns the Western into a zombie horror. And in that part of the game, Seth can be seen playing cards with and dancing with the zombies and is just friends with them.
In the alternate dimension, Seth Breyers hosts a late night show talking to zombies.
Yeah.
It's a late night talk show for corpses.
Emily, that's everything.
Kyle, this episode has cursed me with so much more knowledge of body snatching than I ever could have wanted, but I wouldn't change a bit of it.
I'm so glad, Emily.
Really great. And hey, everybody out there, remember, you can watch us on YouTube at Butter No Parsnips, and you can find us on other social media as well, on Facebook and Instagram at Butter No Parsnips Podcast, and on TikTok at Butter No Parsnips. And if you liked today's episode, consider giving us a 5-star rating or review wherever you heard us.
And if you really liked today's episode, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/butternoparsnips. Donating $5 or more gets you an exclusive access to Buttered Parsnips, our After Hours podcast.
Thanks so much to all of you. You help us make what we make.
And with that, I've been Kyle Imperator.
And I've been Emily Moyers. And this has been Butter No Parsnips.
You died mid-sentence.
Forgot.
Butter No Parsnips is produced by Seth Klicksman, Emily Moyers, and myself, Kyle Imperator. The main and accompanying themes were composed by Kyle Imperator.